welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today with me, Dave Levinsky. Now, Dave is a serial entrepreneur, having founded several companies in multiple areas, from consumer products to services, software as a service companies, internet websites and technologies. He's been running GrowthThink since 1999, so he's still looking very young, but he looks very experienced as well. And I'm sure he's got a few stories to tell us. Now, GrowthThink is a consulting information products firm that has helped over 500,000 entrepreneurs and business owners to start. So I think Dave's got a little bit of experience he can share with us and expertise. I think he's broken the 10,000 hour limit to actually be an expert, maybe an unconscious expert. He's also the founder of Guiding Metrics, a company that tracks KPIs to help businesses grow faster and more profitably. And don't we, as wannabe entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs already, doesn't that sound good? So they focus on business planning, capital raising, and also methodical and sustained growth. He's written a book called Start at the End: How Companies Can Grow Bigger and Faster by Reversing Their Business Plan. So welcome to the show, Dave. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Great to be here. Great to see you.
So 1999, you've done your degrees, you've got an MBA, so you've gone and had some fun and maybe had some fun at university, which a lot of people don't do these days. They actually just do it online. So
right.
I think that's a problem. I don't know. I think a lot of young people miss out on having that experience of being on campus. I think I'd certainly had that joy and fun. So, so in 1999, and you started GrowthThink.
Right.
Where did that come from? Where did that inspiration come from?
That's an interesting question. So I was at business school at UCLA from 97 to 99. So this is right when the internet is sort of just starting to get crazy. And, in Los Angeles and California, a lot of my classmates were starting internet companies. And so I was working with a lot of my classmates launching different internet companies and trying things. And I just had a knack for business planning. And I took a business planning class and everyone needed a business plan. All the venture capitalists and angel investors wanted to see a business plan. So I started writing and helping all my classmates with business plans. And I actually had a venture that I was looking to do on the side. Actually, it was non-technology. I was in the juice business. I was working a couple of juice bars, working actually minimum wage on the side just to learn that business. And I was trying to launch a smoothie product that would be sold in the supermarkets. And I was working on that. And I was launching that, and my friends were launching internet companies. And what happened was that my wife came home from the doctor and said, "I'm pregnant. we need some income coming in." So I said, "Well, I write business plans. I'm good at it. I can do it relatively quickly. Why don't I start doing that on the side so that we have some income coming in, and I could still pursue my dream of running launching my smoothie company?" And what I did then was actually what I think is like a very important lesson is I got PR. I actually took this idea that I was graduating from business school, and me and my colleagues that were starting companies were writing business plans on the side, and we could help other entrepreneurs write business plans. And I pitched a few different sources, and the Los Angeles Times wrote a story about my company back then, which was called bestbizplan.com, because I wasn't really thinking quick. I'm like, that was the first name we came up with. And Los Angeles Times did a big story on it. And that day got like 50 emails, 100 phone calls, and the business was launched right there. Really, it did the market research to tell me that, hey, there was a need for somebody to help write business plans. And so that's also another important lesson for entrepreneurs, is that market research is invaluable. Like that showed me, like if it was crickets and we heard nothing, then I would say, hey, this is a terrible idea. But just doing that initial push and getting all that feedback that, hey, people want someone to help them write business plans, that was that market research that led me to launch the company.
So you wouldn't have known unless you'd actually started doing that, though. In other words,
correct.
You almost started with a minimal viable product, really, didn't you?
Exactly what I did. I mean, I got a little lucky, although I would hope that I'm smart enough back then, or I was smart back then, that if I didn't get any response, I would have said, okay, bad idea, let's move on to something else. And that was the key. I got that market research very, very quickly and easily. It fell in my lap.
So did you write a business plan for starting a company that wrote business plans?
Of course not.
Yeah, there you go.
Eventually we did. About 6 months later, we did.
Okay,
Initially, there
right.
was this massive rush, and I was working, literally 6 days a
Yeah.
week, 18 to 20 hour days, just keeping up with the demand before I was able to hire people.
Yeah.
But yes, then eventually we started systematizing the company and hiring people, and then we did create a business plan about 6 months later.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that for most of us, I think that are in business, the original idea was not even written down. It was just like a thought bubble and listening to
Yeah.
classmates like you did.
Mm.
I think that's fabulous. I think we'll file that one away.
Sounds
So
good.
you've got the business plan company running. You started
Mm.
hiring people. So what were some of the challenges with that?
Well, I mean, we started in 1999, so we staffed up very, very quickly. All the dot coms, and as you know, there was a boom and there was a bust
Yeah.
soon thereafter. And so the first bust was when we went from a lot of people, 20, 30 people, way down very, very quickly. And you would have thought that we would have learned our lesson, but we forget how things happen. Then we start growing the company again. Then we had 2008, and we had the credit crisis. Then we had similar issues. But what's interesting, having been around through these different crises before the COVID crisis, we had really done a very good job of decentralizing our company, virtualizing our company, using a lot more contractors and full-time people. So we were actually fortunate to be in a very good situation when the COVID crisis came that we would not have been had it been 10 years, 15 years earlier. So we did learn some lessons. It took us the dot-com bust and the credit crisis. It took us two lessons to get to where we were, but we learned over time. Really, the process of staffing up quickly was challenging, and you make a lot of mistakes when you do that. And so when you're able to more slowly and methodically hire and staff up, it's just a lot easier. A lot of people don't have that luxury, unfortunately, as you
Yeah.
know.
So what were some of the major learnings that I've heard like just the same type of things mentioned by entrepreneurs as they grow a company? What are some of the most, what two or three of the most important things you think that entrepreneurs need to embrace and learn and implement if they want to grow their company and will make sure it's controlled and scale?
That's a great question. I mean, it's great people. There's no question about it. I have a woman that works for me, and without her, I'm done. I'm done. Hopefully, she's not listening to this interview and she leaves or asks me to triple her salary. But I'm done. She basically, I have great people, particularly her, that really allow that can do everything I can do. And so we have a lot of redundancy. So I can go take a vacation. I can focus on growing the business. And so I don't have to run the business. She can run the business. So I think it's making yourself, replicating yourself. And there's certain things that only you, the entrepreneur, can do. You have the creativity and the passion that a lot of people don't have, but other people have the ability to run things, run the day-to-day activities, which you might find as an entrepreneur a little bit monotonous. And so I think it's really important to get that side of the equation done, get the running the business done, and getting people that can get that done. And right, besides that is systems. Having systems so that the business can run without you. And if that second in command, something happened to them, there is systems that the third in command, the fourth in command, everyone else can, abide by those systems and keep running. Now, with systems, I'm not saying that every single process has to be documented, but there has to be ways that we do things. Hey, if there's an idea, somebody has to write out the idea. Then you have to organize into tasks, and somebody has to, this is the system we're going to use to, go through those tasks, and here's how things are done. By having those systems and having teammates that know how to implement the systems, you can actually run a business and enjoy it, and you can actually grow the business and try new things.
So documenting the complex processes that emerge over time actually simplifies the business, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's not fun to do, but it has to be done.
Yeah, and that's that real tension between growing a business where everything's a bit crazy and there's not lots of processes in place, and trying to make sure that you do put them in place, but not that allow that to actually take you away from the focus of growing the business. I think there's that interesting paradox between sort of free range entrepreneurial spirit that gets things done. Then you're going, okay, we still need to put in place processes so we can scale this and grow it and control it.
Agreed.
Because if you told everyone just to document processes, nothing would get done except the processes.
Agreed.
So, um, so in 1999, you had the dot-com boom and bust.
Mm,
You had the 2008 Great the GFC. Um, you've seen a lot of change over the years. We've seen the rise of, and I think there's some interesting little milestones along the way that I think maybe have impacted. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Number one, we've seen the rise of social media in the early 2000s.
mhm,
Started to hit their mark around the 2007, 2009. And the other perfect storm that happened along the same time was the rise of smartphones
mhm.
and the App Store for Apple and the rise of apps. And what's really, and that's transformed business a lot, hasn't it, in terms of
It has.
apps. And then we're seeing cloud computing. And I think we could almost say those three, they're three key elements. And there are many
Mhm.
others, but I think those three. How do you think the whole App Store has changed the face of business in the last 20 years?
It's a very interesting question. To me, the App Store and applies more to consumer businesses than business to business.
Yep.
I consider what I do more business to business than business to consumer. And so it's interesting. I've done a lot of social media advertising and promotions over the years. And for something like a business plan, it actually converts very, very poorly. My thinking has always been that if somebody's serious about it, someone's a B2B person and they're serious about growing a business and needing a business plan, they're at a desktop, they're at a laptop, they're not on their phone, playing around, right? They're not, go on the grocery store checkout, they're not hanging with their friends on the phone, they're actually sitting in a work environment. So I think that social media is here to stay, and we need to be very clear that people are going to read your emails on a phone, and they're going to look at your reviews on social media, etc. But you need to really understand: are your customers going to interact with you on social media, or are they not? Now, clearly, they're going to interact on social media as part of their lives. So that's why reviews, even if you're a B2B company, they may go on their social media app and review you on their phone. But are they going to really buy from you? Are they going to ask you questions on your mobile phone? I think that's a question that every business owner has to ask themselves to figure out what type of investment they need to make in the app store and mobile devices and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very good point to make that certainly apps are more business to consumer. And you have a look at the likes of app-driven businesses that have no assets, but yet are worth billions of dollars. In fact, hundreds of billions of dollars, such as Uber, which essentially is driven right from an app. They don't own any assets, essentially.
Right.
They basically they have offices, but they could run it virtually pretty well, quite easily. In fact, a lot of companies are now building virtual businesses where there are no head offices,
Yeah.
and we collaborate through different collaboration tools and run businesses using those tools. Now, the other area, so we're talking about you're more in the area of selling business to business, B2B.
Mm.
And we want to generate growth. So one of the things that excited me back in 2008, 2009, after reading David Meerman Scott's New Rules of Marketing and PR,
Mhm.
and one of the reasons that got me to start jeffbullis.com was the importance of creating content to get people to make inquiries. And essentially, if we reflect on what happened with you, a piece of content was created in a newspaper, and you had
Mhm.
50 email inquiries come out of that piece of content.
Right.
So, has content marketing played a role over the years for you and the team?
Yeah, I mean, content marketing is a huge part of our business, is educating, and we do YouTube videos and we do a lot of blog posts on educating the marketplace about business planning and the related topics, capital raising, growing your business, et cetera. So we spend a lot of time developing content, getting it out there. And actually the biggest shift that we've made in growth, I think, was understanding right around that 2008 period that certain people wanted a service, certain people wanted us to write their business plan for them, and certain people wanted just content. So we actually created a business plan template that we sold as a digital product. And we've been doing that for many years. And since then, we created something called Plan Builder, which is online business plan software. But that's all content. That's all and backed up by content. And that actually, to me, was a key turning point in the business, is shifting from a service business to a product business. And the beauty of the selling a product, business plan software, business plan template, is it's infinitely scalable,
Exactly.
right? So you can just scale it all day long. I don't need to be, it's not like the consulting thing is feast or famine, which is that you get a lot of clients and you're feasting, but then you're doing all the work, and then you finish all the work, and then you have no clients. So it's really hard to keep doing both. Versus when you have a product, I know a lot of your the people that are listening to you, Jeff, are in that. They're starting internet businesses, growing internet businesses, and they have a product which is great and allows you to scale it. So I think a lot more professional services or services companies should think about, can we productize? Can we create some sort of digital product, digital content that allows us to sell at 3 a.m. when they're sleeping? Yes. And that allows us to grow the business. And then a lot of people come in. So we consider the do-it-yourself model and the done-for-you model, right? Some people want to do it yourself, and some people want to pay someone to do done for you. So it allows us to do both. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs should think about. If they offer one model, should they also offer that other model? And going back to your question about content, it's really all backed up by content. When you have the right content out there, you can bring in people on both spectrums.
Exactly. Some of the interesting emerging business models and we're seeing is that everything on the internet initially was free. Everyone just gave away all their content for free. Now, what's happened is that there's a lot of gating of content being done, premium content being put behind a paywall. I think Wired magazine, you get 5 for free. After that, you've got to pay. And so we're seeing the rise of what I call monthly membership models, especially in media type businesses and others as well. In other words, they're productizing their knowledge. So have you had an experience with starting membership models, monthly subscription products over the years?
Yeah, our main one is, as you mentioned earlier, the guiding metrics, which is a KPI platform. So with that platform, we are measuring a company's metrics. So for example, most companies have a website that has Google Analytics on their website, and some companies have a shopping cart that might be Shopify. And then you might be doing Facebook ads. That's on Facebook. What the dashboard does is it pulls from Shopify and Facebook and Google Analytics into one place. And that's what our dashboard does. We set it up for them, and then they pay a setup fee and a monthly fee to have access to their dashboard. So it's a great business model when getting clients is easy and churn is low.
Okay.
Not a great business model when it's hard to get clients and churn is high. But it can be and is oftentimes a great business model.
Yeah, some of the two biggest challenges with the membership model is number one, onboarding, and number two is reducing churn. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned about onboarding over the years.
Sure. I think onboarding, you gotta really educate the client. It's amazing that obviously depending on your service, your software service, and price points, but a lot of times people sign up, they don't know what to expect, and so you definitely have to spend the time onboarding them, teaching them how to use all the bells and whistles, and making sure that becomes part of their routine. Particularly for something like metrics, if it's not part of your routine that you're looking at your results, then you're going to cancel at some point. So I think the key thing is that when you offer service like that, a subscription service, you need to, when I say onboard, it's really, you need to teach them a habit, get them in the habit of using your tool and teach them what they really need to know about it. A lot of times there's tons of bells and whistles. Do they need them all? Going back to like what you said, what is a minimum viable product? What is the part of that technology or tool that they really need to use, and try to forge that habit? That's why that first 30 days is so important, because they say, habits are formed in 28 days or start 21 days. Getting your users in the habit of using your app, your technology, your service, I think that's critical.
Yeah. The other challenge we heard is with onboarding is keeping it as simple as possible as to providing really good content or onboarding experience. I heard one fellow entrepreneur recently chatting with Alex Baroz. He said that they reduced their onboarding from 7 steps to 3. In other words, they kept it as simple as possible. So the next challenge is, okay, you've got them, you've onboarded them, they're happy, little Vegemites, as we say in Australia. That term's not used in America. Anyway, Vegemite is this terrible black paste that tastes terrible. but it goes well on toast, and it's really good if
Okay.
you've been drinking too much the night before, apparently. Um, so, so you've got them on board. Now you want to stop them churning because you might have spent, $50 getting them to sign up, as in marketing costs and onboarding costs. Um, but if they leave before you get their money back, then it's a challenge. So, what are some of the things you've learned about reducing churn over the years?
Sure. I think before I specifically answer that question, I think there's this statistic, which who knows if it's true or not in its exactness, but in its precision, the statistic that it costs 7 times more to get a new customer than it costs to retain an existing
Yes.
customer.
Yes.
I just think of whether it's 7 or 5 or whatever the numbers, it obviously costs a lot more to get a new customer. So I just think that one thing that entrepreneurs and business owners need to keep in mind is that it's okay to spend money on your existing customers to keep them, right?
Yes.
So like, yes, you spent that in your example, $50 to get them as a client. It's okay to spend $5 or $10 more to try to get them to stay longer term. So one of the things we did, started doing years ago, is presents, cookies and things in the mail to our clients for becoming a client, and just get them, spend a little money, and maybe not initially right after we onboard them, but a few months down the road, to send them a gift. Hey, we're so excited that you're a client, and what can we do to help you? And it also gives some reciprocity, right? That they feel that they sort of owe you something. So anything you can do to just before they're even thinking about churning, that you can get them in your really good graces and invest some money in them on just a gift or something unexpected, gets you in a better relationship between you and the client. In terms of reducing churn, for us and things that I've done has always been market research. My background many moons ago was in market research. So the first people that churn, you have to get them on the phone and say, hey, no problem. Actually, I'll give you a box of cookies if you answer my questions. But why did you leave us? What did you like? What did you not like? And then over time, you gotta get those answers. So originally in market research, you want to do primary research, which is talking to people face to face. Then you understand what the issues are. Then over time, you can have just a survey. Hey, can you answer these 5 questions? Because you have a sense of what the issues are, and then you have an open-ended question. What else? But you gotta collect the research to find out why they're churning, and then ideally modify your service to try to prevent the churn, or figure out what are the churn points. Is the churn after 5.5 months? If so, then at 5 months, then you got to send those cookies or do something to reduce the churn. So you got to really figure out why they're churning and when they're churning. And a lot of times that when they're churning, you'll notice if you actually look at the data and do what we call a cohort analysis, which is, hey, let's look at all the people that started on January 1st of last year, what happened to them? All the people started February 1st of last year, what happened to them? And start learning, are they churning in a certain month, like July, or are they churning after a certain amount of days or months or weeks? And then figure out that information. Then armed with that information, you can do a lot to reduce churn.
I think there's some really good points. Gifts, for example, also depends on the price point of your product as well, doesn't it?
Sure.
Yeah. So we mentioned writing a business plan before, and I think number one, what I loved hearing was it was just you watching people's behavior and the market, and didn't write a business plan to start a company that was how to write a business plan.
Right.
I think that's an incredible paradox. But the reality is that you had the idea, but you got that idea by watching other people and listening to the market, just anecdotally, isn't it? Really. So, but okay, we're going to write a business plan. I read one of your articles, which was the 10 major things you should include in your business plan. You should be able to write a business and how to write a business plan in 8 hours. But can you tell us what you think are the most important elements? Can we distill 10 down to 3 or 4 elements they should have in a business plan if they're going to write a one-pager, for example?
Sure. I mean, I'll get it down to one point that I want your business plan. Actually, 2 points. The first thing is to concisely explain what you're doing in 1 sentence, maybe 2 sentences. So if you can't do that, you have a problem in your hand. I've met too many entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you have as well. They say, "What do you do?" And it takes them, they're rambling for 2 minutes, and you still don't really know what they do. So the first thing is you have to be able to concisely explain what it is you're doing. If not, no one's going to read your plan. They're going to get frustrated and confused. And it's going to be hard to get customers if you can't explain yourself. So one, concisely explain what you do. Two is answer this question, which is, why are you uniquely qualified to succeed? So that's the question that I want to answer. So let's say, Jeff, that you and I were starting a company, okay? And we're going to start a painting business, right? I'm just throwing, what is it? So why could you and I be uniquely qualified to succeed? And I've never used this example, so I'm digging here. So let's say, Jeff, you and I both have a lot of experience painting, right? Let's say you and I have been painting for 20 years. So that's a reason why we might be uniquely qualified to succeed. Maybe we have relationships with a bunch of builders that could get us a lot of painting clients. So we have relationships, we have joint venture partners, we have relationships. Maybe we have customer relationships, right? Maybe over years of doing other businesses, we know a ton of homeowners that would definitely, trust us, know us, like us. Maybe we have good relationships with the media, right? So maybe we can get, PR stories written about our painting firm. Maybe we have a ton of experience managing related consumer services firms. So we know how to hire people. We know how to train people. Maybe we have experience with operational systems. So we can actually maybe build software to really expertly manage our painting business. Maybe we have unique painting technology. We have access to technology that allows us to paint homes, in half the time that our competitors do. So just, you start thinking about it, and you say, well, if we actually had, Jeff, you and I actually had all these advantages, we're going to build a great paint, right? It's going to be hard for us to screw it up. So just think about, why are you uniquely qualified to succeed? And a lot of times that exercise gives you great ideas. Oh, imagine I hired this person, right? Imagine I hired this person that actually knew all the building firms, so I can get a bunch of painting jobs. Maybe if I license this technology, maybe if I did that. So that's what I'm always thinking about, is why are you uniquely qualified to succeed? What do you have now? Let's put that in a plan. And what do you need to do? Who do you need to hire? What technology do you need to license? Who do you need to partner with? And that, to me, allows you to create a great business plan that not only is a plan someone reads like, wow, this company's going to be successful, but it actually allows you to be successful. It allows you not to be a me too, because if there's nothing that makes you uniquely qualified to succeed, then you're just a me too business and you're probably not going to be very successful.
Yeah, I love that. So number one, be able to describe your business in one sentence. Sometimes that's called an elevator pitch. In other words, you got to tell what you do between floor one and floor two.
Right.
Number two, you need to be uniquely qualified. In other words, I shouldn't start a painting business. I should stick to digital publishing.
Yes.
So
and but you're good at it, right? It's like when you're well spoken, you have, it's like, if you think about it, back then, you had these unique qualifications. Yes. And then over time you've built more and more of them. That's why you've been successful.
Yeah. And this is why sometimes you've got to restrain yourself, because one of your growth words you include in is ideas. The thing is, there's a lot of great ideas. And I think the challenge as entrepreneurs, most of us, is we're creative, so we come up with different ideas. And sometimes even your staff have to say, look, Jeff, look, don't distract us. We've already got a great idea. We just need to evolve it. So that's and that's the challenge. Like, you came up with a great idea by listening to the market that was in front of you and around you, which was a business plan market, and you evolved it from there to actually then go and do things like raise capital and coach and help people make their business successful, because that's where you start from, the idea, the business plan, and then evolve it from there. Tell us a little bit about your capital raising and what you see happening in the area, because it's fascinating now to watch the whole startup scene, which has evolved in Silicon Valley and globally now. The whole startup scene, and where do you see it today and where do you see it going? Because it has changed, hasn't it? Because the startup was this hot term, it still is. I think we're seeing the biggest change in business in centuries, frankly, because we've seen the intersection of different technologies, and we've talked about some of those. So where do you see the startup place at the moment? And we can talk about capital raising, and where do you see, and what's the future of startups, you think?
Sure. I mean, just back up to something you said about, go back to that research. we started as a business plan company. We start doing capital raising years later because our clients told us, can you help us raise capital? Can you help us raise capital? So just another example of listening to your market. And then if enough customers say they want this, there's a market. Now, when we first started raising capital for companies, and even 10 years ago, it was very different than it was today. It was still, hey, there's select angel investors and there's venture capital firms, and everyone went after venture capital firms. Now it's so much less expensive to start a startup, right? You can start a startup so inexpensively and online from your apartment or house that there's a lot less need for venture capital. And I think that's why I believe startups have changed dramatically, because the cost to start a company has gone down dramatically.
Yes.
Right. We can start something with $100 or less, and we can start something with virtually no money. We can start some sort of application very inexpensively. And so I think that's been the biggest change over the years, is how quick, easy, and inexpensive it is to start a company. Now, the flip side is that things get more competitive because you have more competitors that are thinking the same thing. But in terms of raising capital, I think that venture capitalists now, unless you have significant traction, they're not interested, right? So unless you have, 1 million downloads or 100,000 downloads or getting all these visitors or this and that, they've already achieved a lot of milestones, then they're not interested. So there's more, now you got to go down a level to angel investors. Now, I consider angel investors, wealthy individuals willing to write a $25,000 or more check. And then we have a level down, which is more friends, family. And now with crowdfunding, it's the internet. It's anyone that's interested in your idea that could put in $10, $50. And so we've sort of democratized capital raising from just the few wealthy to just anyone, right? Anyone could just chip in. And I think that's really changed the landscape as well. And that's why crowdfunding has been done for many years. And one of the great examples was actually Australia, which was Blowfly Beer in Australia many, many moons ago, using crowdfunding to get investors for their beer company. And I love it because, you get investors, they're going to buy your product as well, right? They're going to buy and drink your beer. If I'm investing in a beer company and I have two choices of beer, I'm going to buy the one that I invested in. And so, I love crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is also incredible market research, right? If you put something out there that, hey, we're starting our painting business, and we put it up on the crowdfunding sites, and everyone funds us in our locations, then we have a winner. But if we have crickets and nobody funds our painting business, we go, hey, maybe it's not a good idea. And so that's why I really love crowdfunding, because it gives you that market research to say, are people interested? And that's why I think that's changed capital raising quite dramatically.
Yeah. So you're saying, number one, it's so cheap to start a business. I think it's the point you made, and I totally agree with that. It cost me $10 to start my digital publishing business in 2009. Right. That was a domain name. I downloaded a free WordPress template to create a very, very basic looking website, which I still have access to. And yes, sure, we spent money over the years, but $10 is what it cost me for a domain name. And the cost of software is now so cheap. And that's interesting too. Like, for example, Clubhouse, I believe, was written on a very smart, clever software app that they wrote the code in 1 week.
Right.
So software has become also so much easier to write. Like, I think no code software, I think, is what they're doing now. I'm not a coder. I try to do basic back into, in the 1980s, 1990s, and I just sucked at coding. So I didn't start a coding business, luckily. And I'm not about to start a painting business either. But so where do you think business is going in the future with digital tech, and what are some of the big trends you see emerging currently?
Well, one of the things, and this also dovetails on the inexpensive nature of starting a business today, is there are so many contractor sites out there, the Fivers, the Upworks, where you can find great resources worldwide, a couple clicks of your mouse. And that didn't exist. I mean, we started using, I think it was rentacoder.com many years ago. Yeah. When I actually found a great guy that still works in India that works with us today. And I found him in, probably around 2009 from that site. And so I think that one of the changes is the ability to get experts from around the world on your team. And we're seeing more and more of
Yeah.
that, which is that a team that has full-time people that are, and are part of people that are literally global in nature. In my company, we're global in nature. We have people all over the world that are experts in certain areas. And the other thing we see a lot of is just these part-time experts. Hey, we need somebody in this country that has these relationships. 10 years ago, it was really hard to find that. Now you can find it very, very easily. So you can get the expertise you want at the click of a mouse worldwide and inexpensively. And that changes things dramatically, where many years ago we were tied to what are the resources available right here. And that's why Silicon Valley, that actually made Silicon Valley, because they had Stanford and they had Cal Berkeley and they had great universities right there. And that's why location was so important. And we'll see how that changes over time, because you don't really need that hub. And they still have networking events that probably during COVID, but they still have that hub of activity. But I think that's going to change a lot over time, where the physical closeness, proximity, is not going to be as important.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting time over the next 10 years as companies
Yeah.
go more virtual. What's the importance of real human contact and using the biblical term breaking bread, in other words,
Right.
by catching up for a drink, how important is that versus doing something like this, like we're effective with by Zooming, which is now a new verb, as in Googling.
Right.
We're creating a relationship because we actually are having a chat in real time from the other side of the world, but we're not in the same physical location. I
Right.
think I think that's important, but I think still as humans we do crave that physical proximity and meeting around the water cooler, which is so. And we are in the middle here, Atlassian, which is the big Australian company that does software in the cloud, collaboration software, does Trello, which we use. There's a bit of a tech hub happening in Sydney at the moment with Atlassian at the core, and then so how important do you think it is to have that physical proximity? We're seeing it change at the moment. Do you see that as being important down the track as well?
I clearly think it's important. So the question though becomes, can we meet in person and how often? So, before COVID, we were doing 2 to 3 times a year meetings for our company. So we were taking people all over the place, and we'd physically meet in one location for like 2 days every, 4 to 5 months. And that, we felt, brought everyone together, got everyone excited. You had that
Yep.
interaction that's different, right, than we're having over Zoom. Also, what we do, a lot of our people have historically been in recent times in WeWork-esque locations. So in these executive suite locations where they're actually building their own relationships with other people in other companies. So they're not working out of their apartment or home in complete isolation. So they're working, and that's where I am right now. I'm in an executive suite where I have 6 or 7 other people on my floor that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. I'm seeing them in the kitchen and for good. So I have that daily interaction, even though they're not part of my company. And then I'm interacting with my company via Slack, and I'm going to interact with my company in person. Is that for everyone? No, right? If some people need much more interaction with their own company, I think there's different age groups that want more interaction. Some people want less interaction. So I think that time's going to tell. But yes, there definitely needs to be some sort of human interaction within your company. Maybe that's once a year that the company pays for everyone to travel one location. I think that's very, very important. The question to me is how often you need that physical face-to-face contact.
Yeah, and I think certainly the 20, 30 somethings, especially the 20s, they're finding their feet. They want to learn by being mentored, someone next to them. And I think the other thing that is I think we've learnt during the last 12 months is the importance of documenting what we do so that you can onboard people as an employees onto the team. So, and the term I've heard used is asynchronous, basically communication. In other words, record something and then share it, which
Right.
can be viewed anytime, anywhere. I
Right.
think that's become important. So, are there any just before we finish here, what do you think are some of the most exciting companies you're working with today? What areas you can be as transparent as possible. But what are some of the most exciting businesses that you are seeing today and working with?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give specific company names, but we're doing a lot in artificial intelligence. I think that's something that's going to change things quite dramatically.
Yes.
A lot in fintech and financial technologies, and a lot in health tech. So those are areas that are, fintech. There's both fintech and health tech is really consumer. It's a lot of consumer. It's just how we go through our lives, right? We're all in touch with some sort of financial technology and health technology on a daily, if not weekly basis.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of cool advancements in both those areas that I think are going to change how we operate in the next few years.
Yeah. So anything else in terms of entrepreneurs who have an idea? You mentioned the two things they should do, which we'll start again. Number one, they should be able to state it in one sentence. Number two, they should be able to and answer the question, why am I uniquely qualified for this? What are some of what's a couple of top tips that you would say to an entrepreneur who is about to start, or an entrepreneur that is on the road and wants to grow their company? What's a couple of top tips from you, Dave?
Sure. So first thing is, particularly for a startup, is don't be afraid to share your idea. So many entrepreneurs are, they say, I have this great idea, like, I'm not going to tell you, or sign a non-disclosure. Most people can't execute on an idea. It's not the idea, it's the execution of the idea.
Yes.
You mentioned Uber before. Most people could have probably had the same Uber idea. And we actually, as a business plan firm, has been so crazy that, like, when social networking came out, we got like so many entrepreneurs call us, within weeks, saying, hey, we're starting a social networking company. So what happens, somewhere in the universe, someone has this idea and other people get the same idea. So it's not just the idea, it's executing the idea. What you need is, you need to execute an idea. You need to get people behind you, excited for you, helping you out. So don't be afraid to share your idea. That's a B. Is we talked about having lots of ideas earlier. For me, when I hear a new idea, as someone who's grown companies, I never, ever execute on a new idea right away, ever, because most likely it's a shiny object. So we have meetings mid-month and at the beginning of every month. So first of the month and middle of the month. And those meetings, we talk about, okay, what did we accomplish last month? What are our goals for this month? And then mid-month, we say, are we on track to hitting our goals? At the end of the month, we say, do we hit our goals? What new ideas do we want to consider? So if we hear an idea, we write it down. We don't think about it for at least 15 days, if not 30 days. We review it like 30 days later at the next monthly meeting. Hey, this is an idea I came across. This new technology, a new this or that. We talk about it. 90% of times, we say, not a good idea. But 90% of the time, right when we hear the idea, we're like, great idea, right? You want to do it. We love that. We love our shiny objects. We love, like, we hear, hey, it's just working great for this person. Let's try it. We got to slow down and say, have a game plan. This is our strategy. And the new idea is not part of our strategy until we look at it 30 or so days later and say, does this fit into our strategy? Is it that good of an idea that we're going to modify our documented strategy to go after? And what possibly are we not going to do because we're doing this new idea? And when you think about it that way, you judge new ideas a lot more stringently and you make a lot better decisions.
That's a great idea. It's like sleep on it, but sleep on it for 30 days.
Yes, exactly. Write it down, forget about it, and then look at it 30 days later and say, was it really that good idea? And sometimes it's a little depressing. You're like, because when you wrote it down, you typed it in, it was a great idea, and you're all excited about it, and now it's not such a great idea.
Well, you sort of look at it going, what was I thinking?
Exactly. But then you say, thank goodness I didn't waste my time, energy, resources doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
I think the other thing about startups and businesses and business ideas and about funding, which I thought was very interesting, was that in the dot-com boom, people threw money at an idea.
Right.
I think in 2021, a lot of the funding's being done when they seeing serious traction. So is that called a stage 2 or B capital raising? I don't know. But yeah, so you've got to be very careful that has they got a product that's working in the market. Now it's about scaling and growing it.
Yes.
And quite often the challenge as a startup is essentially it's a battle for it's a race to actually a technology race as well as a market share race. In other words, can you keep developing? Because we used to be about developing software, because a lot of companies are driven and by software, aren't they?
Right.
So the software's got to be continue to be evolved over time, so you stay ahead of the competition. On top of that, you're also chasing the battle for customers as well and market share. So I see those two as the biggest challenges for startups, is those two areas: the battle for market share and a battle for technology.
Yep. Agreed.
So anything else just to leave our listeners with before we close this?
Yeah, I got to say one thing on business plans. People don't like to write business plans. So I'm okay with you not writing a business plan as you launch your company. Like if you're trying to do that market research, test something, test that minimal viable product, get something out there to prove that there's a market. I'm cool with that. Once you know there's a market, a business plan, even if you're not after capital, it's helpful in that think of it less as a documented business plan and more of a strategy roadmap, which says this. And that's the purpose of my book, Start at the End, which is the point is that we're here today. Where do we want to be at the end? Are we trying to build? What are we trying to build? So I say, okay, in 5 years, we're trying to build a company that has 10 million in revenue and has X thousand customers and has these products, this technology. Well, okay, great. What do we need to do in the next 12 months to put us on the trajectory to getting to that 5-year goal? And just think about that. Who do we need to hire this year? What do we need to build this year? And that tells you, where you need to be on December 31st. And then you work backwards. What do we need to include to build each quarter? And that also, by doing that, you then have that roadmap, and then you're less shiny object. You're less going in different directions. You're basically have a roadmap that says, we need to do this. So now August 1st rolls around and you say, what your plan is for August. And everyone on your team knows this is what we need to do in August to hit this year's goal, to be on track to hit our 5-year goal. I think it's just a critical thing. Does the plan need to be 20 pages long? No, it could be 1 page, but get that strategy down. Figure out what is it that you want to build? What does your company look like when you build it? And what do you need to do this year to get on track? And what do you need to do this month to get on track? And that's your to-do list. And so that, to me, if you can do that, I've trained a lot of companies to do that. When you do that, you'll be a lot more successful and you won't be chasing different directions and stuff.
I love that concept, and it's beautifully summed up by your book, Start at the End. In other words, how companies can grow bigger and faster by reversing their business plan. Start at the end. I love it. Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot, and this is what I love about doing this, is I'm the student listening to the teachers, the experts in their areas, and I'm always amazed. And thank you very much for sharing your time and your expertise.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. Great to speak to you.